Hello friends, this is Joseph from HoS Sound. We started HoS Sound with one intention, which is to connect people in the music industry and help artists, promoters, label owners, Spotify curators, and other people who work in the music industry to spread their message and get known by an audience who is interested in that. And as a byproduct, we hope that some of these insights that we share in these chats will help and inspire other of us. Without further ado, enjoy today's guest. Matt, in Art Killawatt, is a long-standing producer and DJ who has an eclectic portfolio of releases and music. He started by getting into old-school breaks several years before eventually embracing techno as well, landing on a signature style that makes his music unique. Killawatt approaches music making with an open mind in order to keep creativity as a priority. His consistent release schedule has seen him appearing on labels such as Osiris and 47 quite often, and he will soon release on his own imprint as well. In this chat, we get into his musical roots from the old school parties he used to go to. We also cover his take on life and keeping a balance with other jobs outside of music. We also talk about how living away from the big cities allows you to look at things very differently. And we get a glimpse of his future plans to take up an engineering degree, because he feels the need to contribute to society in more ways than only through his music. As a prolific and well-appreciated producer of a niche genre, Matt also reminds us that without getting your music out there, there is no way people can hear, and let alone like, what we create. I hope you enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, thank you for making time for this. It's I know we tried already almost a year ago, and
yeah, I forgot about that.
Wow.
Forgot about that.
It's crazy, yes. So how are you doing? I mean, these days. I mean, I know you're still working on your side job, and how is the music going these days?
Yeah, pretty busy at the moment. I'm sort of decided at the end of last year to start various different projects all at the same time. Obviously, I've done the Motive Power thing with Sixes recently, which has sort of taken up sort of 50% of the time. Working on another EP for June, I think, at the moment. And then hopefully a live set this summer if sort of I can actually travel and maybe get over to Belgium, because we want to get that sorted for around November time. But obviously that depends on what's happening right now. And then starting my own solo Killawatt label. Won't be called Killawatt, but yeah, I just thought it was about time that I started my own thing, because I've always wanted more, I think, creative control over the music I release, because I write a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily suitable for what labels want a lot of the time, but that I really like. So I want to release it, so starting my own label seems like the logical step. And then yeah, just doing all sorts of like remixes and sort of single tracks for BAs and all sorts, really.
Yeah, I know you just did a remix for Madame Psychosis. You remixed Stay Fit, and I love it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. I quite enjoyed that remix. I always like working with sort of any sort of vocal sample.
Yeah, it came out well, because I mean it's a slow. I think it's less than under 20 BPM, so it's kind of slow.
15, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. The sound is very neat and powerful. I love it. Great stuff.
Yeah, I also like writing that tempo as well. I'm trying to do it more at the moment. It's just got that kind of sludgy roll to it, which I quite like.
Yeah, it feels like especially the bass line has a different color when it's that slow. Like you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's more space, I suppose, and you hear things differently, because we're so used to like techno now being like 140 BPM, and everything's just got faster and faster and faster, and there's not generally a lot of space in the mix to do like slightly different rhythms and I don't know, it's sort of, there's not that much room to do that much creatively, in my opinion. So I always like going a bit slower.
That's definitely a downside of doing super fast music, especially the space is non-existent because the key, it's very hard to feed in sounds. And yeah, so really good job on the remix, and also Motive Power has been also like a great discovery. And were you working with Sixes for long before that, or it was a recent?
No, not at all. I can't remember exactly when he hit me up, but I really loved his RNS release.
Yeah.
Played that a lot, and then I think I just played it in a mix and like tagged him on Instagram, and he hit me up and was like, "Do you want to, swap stems or whatever?" So we just sort of sent each other a bunch of projects that weren't really going anywhere individually.
Yeah.
Just went back and forth. Probably did sort of 8-10 tracks, and then came out with 4, and then didn't really have a home for them particularly. So I was just like, well, let's just release them myself. And then I think we sent some stuff to Tommy, and then that sort of didn't initially work out, but then sort of came back to us and said, write some more stuff and send it over. So we did, and it had a slightly more punky DIY, slightly grittier feel to it, which he was into. And then ended up doing the 4/7 release. And I think that's kind of the path we're going to go down in terms of the aesthetic, is because I know Peter's very into like the punk scene, and he does stuff with bands, and obviously he knew Hypno Skull, and that's how that kind of came about. So yeah, we want to go down that slightly more punky aesthetic really with future stuff.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, it's the sound is pretty intense, but also interesting as well. I really like the broken stuff that you do, and I think the Motive Power is like it's a great.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot in common in terms of our sound. Really, it's probably why we write together fairly easily. I mean, it tends to be that he sort of starts the tracks and then fires them over to me, and I tend to sort of arrange them, mix them, and finish them. So it's quite an easy sort of working relationship, really.
Yeah. So you basically, I mean, you bounce track off each other, like basically you send the stems or projects.
Yeah.
Do you start with an idea, or is more like in a way like the Motive Power release on 47? So Tommy asked you, hey, can you send me some more? Did you guys structure what you wanted to create, or was more like, okay, let's make a bunch of tracks and we send to Tommy whatever comes out of it?
I can't really remember, to be honest. It would have been Peter sent me some initial ideas, like just projects of stems. And it might have been, I think there might have been one track that had this kind of vocal, slightly punky vocal element in it. And that's sort of how the more vocal influence of that EP came to be. I don't think there was ever like an initial idea to work with a vocalist. But yeah, I can't remember how. I think Tommy was like, we sent some stuff to Tommy, and he was like, try and get some vocals for this. It could sound really cool, and that's how it happened. But I've never really worked with vocals before properly, and actually having someone like do custom bespoke vocals for a track worked really well. So I think that's definitely again something we want to do more of in the future, because there's not really that much of that sort of thing in techno. Well, it's very difficult to find anything like that. So yeah, I was pleased with sort of how original it ended up sounding.
Yeah, makes sense. And who did the vocal in that case on Motive Power?
Hypno Skull.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
I think the vocal samples on Brass Knuckles on the 4/4 track were just some kind of random vocals that Peter had lying about on a hard drive or something. I'm not entirely sure, but they worked really well. So yeah.
It does work really well with the music as well, and I agree with you. The vocals are I mean, you might like them or you might not like them, but I think it's something that in techno has been not used that much.
There's a lot of tracks at the moment with vocals in like that kind of
EBM.
90s just looped. Well, yeah, EBM, but also just kind of looped vocal samples over and over again, which kind of is a thing that everyone seems to be doing at the moment. But I like the more raw kind of sound that I think the sort of the punky vocal has.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I work a lot with vocals lately, and I find it super interesting because it's like, yeah, going beyond the sample, which is, yeah, you find like a loop of a vocal and it becomes like a sound almost. Like I think
Yeah.
Even having some lyrics, I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing, yes, I remember. So Rosa, I think there's a girl called Rosa Anschulz, something like that, from Austria, who's a great singer, and she also plays a live set, and then she got a remix by Kobosil on our record, and I mean that's proper singing, and I think I found it incredible. Like the track is a techno track by Kobosil, probably like 4/4 techno, and she sings with very beautiful vocal, like not even punky, but like very, very melodic and beautiful, and it fits really well. Like it sounds like an amazing track.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with vocals a lot of the time, though, in dance music, because it's really difficult. You have to find that line between not becoming slightly cheesy, if you know what I mean. It's very easy to do. But there are, I think there was it Perk remixed someone a few years ago? It was some kind of vocal track that was really, really cool. I can't remember what that is now.
It might have been Danny Passarella, I think.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Temperature is raised. Is right. Yeah, I think. Yeah,
that was a really cool track.
Very, very interesting.
It's difficult to do, I think.
Yeah, because I agree with you. Like another Giant Swan also are doing interesting stuff with vocals, although very oriented towards screaming and
Yeah. I mean, I think Giant Swan are awesome. Sort of, again, they completely. They are that, techno punk vibe, really.
Yeah, very rough.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, cool. That punky DIY thing is just kind of really cool. I'm into that.
I like it, yes. And so talking about like this particular moment in history, like how do you keep, like, do you set for yourself like hours you want to spend in the studio, or is it just whenever you have time?
It's whenever I have time, really, because I'm really busy with the day job. So, I mean, sometimes it might be like I'll literally spend 15 minutes on a track in a day and just kind of tweak something. And it tends to be now, like, whereas I used to write 7 tracks a week when this was like all I was doing, now I'll start like 4 or 5 tracks, have them all going at the same time, and just kind of weave in and out of them, tinkering with them, and then maybe a month or 2 later they'll be done. But it tends to be just when I have time, which I do wish I had more time sometimes. But at the same time, I think it's nice to get away from the music and go and do something else and then come back to it with fresh ears.
Yeah, fully agree. And I remember in one of the interview you did for someone else, I don't remember, but you mentioned that your aspiration was to eventually make music full time. Has that changed in your mind, or is this different now for you?
I mean, I think that's the kind of idealistic view, but I don't. Doing that for the rest of my life, I think, is a very kind of unrealistic expectation, I think. Especially we've all seen how fragile the music industry is right now with what's happened. It's not, if you can do it and you can get into it solidly and successfully and safely, then yeah, I mean, it would be good. But yeah, I don't know if I'm really up for that. I mean, I was thinking about, I still do stuff for more commercial stuff, like trailers, and I pitch for that stuff and adverts. But which again, if you can get into that reliably, is, you know, very good money and fairly safe money. But it's so difficult to get into. I mean, at the moment, I'm actually starting a engineering degree in October. So I think for the future, it's going to be doing this just as a passion, really. Because I used to do this for a living when I was writing dubstep, but I just find it so stressful because you're constantly thinking about like your next gig and you know, where's the money coming from, and then you start writing music to make money, which then, you know, I think becomes boring. But I think I would, having done this for a few years and thought about it, I think I would rather do this as a side thing. Makes it much more enjoyable.
I agree, and you're not the first person who says that. I think I think there are a few other artists who are exactly at the same view. I think in a way there's a bunch of artists who think they aspire to that, but then when it comes down to reality, the reality of the things is that, as you just said, basically, if you need to do music to make money, your creativity shifts a bit.
Yeah.
And that's at some point you become slave of your
yeah. And I think you have to be realistic about it. It's like, yeah, some people get lucky and they have their sound, and that sound at that time gets picked up and becomes very popular. They become very successful, and you know, they have a career for the next 10 years, make a lot of money, and then they can live off publishing and PRS for the rest of their life. But I mean, but you have to be realistic, and that, you know, it's so incredibly difficult to sustain that for, I don't know, for the next 30, 40 years.
Indeed, yeah. And also, like, given the type of music that we tend to do, I think it's even harder because the market is even smaller.
Yeah, it's incredibly niche. I mean, it might feel like kind of industrial dark techno is like really popular at the moment, but you have to remember that we're in our kind of bubble, you know, and, you know, Instagram bubble, and when you go on Instagram, all you see is industrial techno, and it seems like, you know, really popular and everything, but it's not. It's a tiny niche of music that, you know, some people get lucky and can make a lot of money in, but, you know, it's realistically it's not going to happen for a whole lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. For a lot of us, and it might not happen. And yeah, and I like the fact what you just said, that is basically if you have another job, it also introduces balance to your life, money wise, but also like you're creatively, like you feel like no pressure in doing music, and when you get to the studio, you feel like, okay, now I'm gonna actually do things freely, and
yeah,
you don't need to rely on let's say their only output to survive, which means it can be much more free.
I think you know, you can still make decent money off music, especially now with how Bandcamp has sort of changed things in terms of being more independent, and you don't have to have a middleman in terms of distribution anymore. And if you don't have to sell that many records on Bandcamp to make a decent amount of money every month if you're releasing regularly. And that's definitely an avenue that people can go down. Yeah,
definitely. And so you released, of course, on a lot of labels, Osiris Music, 47, and now you mentioned that you wanted to start your own label. Like, what is the idea behind that? Is it?
It's just sort of to have more control and independence, really. Like I was saying, I write a lot of music that isn't necessarily suitable for the labels that I, want EPs off me, but that I really like, and I feel like I should release it. Because I don't necessarily write much, banging 4/4 techno and the dance floor stuff. Like, I find that really difficult to write. Like, when I first started releasing on 4/7, Tommy was like, "Yeah, we need like a 4/4 track and stuff, because the DJs will play it and it sells well, and it gets people who aren't necessarily interested into the more niche, broken techno, gets them into it." but I just find it so difficult to write because I just get bored so quickly with the 4/4 stuff. And I don't really get bored very easily writing anything. That's kind of why I want to write this label. I want to start this label because I've got so much music, but it's kind of all over the place in terms of genre. Has a similar kind of aesthetic, but you know, it could be dubstep, it could be like 150 hybrid, weird techno stuff, just ambient, and that's frankly really difficult to get a label to release. So yeah, I was just like, yeah, I'll start my own label and do it that way.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it gives you creative freedom. First of all, like you have, especially if you sit on a lot of music that you want to release, like having to wait on other labels' agenda, it's painful.
Yeah, it is.
For whatever reason, like genuine reasons, like they might have a full schedule, and it's crazy. Like, so I have 2 labels, and one is the one that you did the remix for, and I got to a point when I'm Psychosis that I couldn't release my own music because I have a full schedule for the next 6 months. I'm like, what the fuck, you know? Like, and so I had to restart another label that I had before that are now I use for exactly what you said, which is like I have a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily see fit in other labels, or for whatever reason it doesn't get released. I want to release it, and that gives me a lot of like I'm really satisfied with the journey, with being able to then saying, hey, I want to release something in 2 weeks. I'm just gonna do it. I don't need to ask anyone, and that's beautiful. Are you thinking for your label to release your music mainly for sure, but also other people's music, or not?
For the time being, it's going to be purely my music. I've kind of spent the last 8-9 years like flirting between so many labels and doing all sorts of stuff. Like I kind of got to a point last year where I felt like I needed to really focus in on kind of just me and be really selfish about it in terms of the direction I want to go in and the material I release and everything, because I just felt like I was a bit all over the place in direction and my sound and stuff. So yeah, I kind of just took the decision to wrap everything up that I was doing for other people, and I think I've got one more remix that I'm doing at the moment, but I'm pretty sure after that I haven't got any kind of other commitments to anyone else, which I'm really looking forward to, because it takes the pressure off, and I can just do what I want. So ideally I want to release maybe 3, probably 4 records a year on my solo label. And then maybe 3 Motive Power records a year. Just keep a really kind of consistent flow of solid material coming out. I think that's just a really effective way to do things. And then I do have other projects. Like I have a project with a friend called Ipman we lived together at uni, and we've done loads of dubstep in the past, and he lives in Bristol and teaches music production at the moment, but we have another project that we haven't initially kind of figured out what we want it to be yet, but we know we want to do something in the future. So I think that's going to be the case of just going over to Bristol a few times, getting in the studio and sort of seeing what happens. But fortunately can't do that right now with what's going on. Yeah. It's
tricky now, but I mean, eventually we will get to a point where things go back to freedom and reality, and I think the best we can do now is to do music at home and keep releasing it.
Yeah, and I think that's where Bandcamp comes in really handy, because you know everyone's at home writing at the moment, hopefully, and then you know if they want, they can just kind of get something mastered quickly and just chuck it out. And I think that's a really cool thing to be able to do now.
It is, yes. But I just received an email I think this week from SoundCloud that they're opening a distribution service which will allow to from SoundCloud, if you have Pro, you can do it for free. You release on whatever you want, like Spotify and all the other stores. So that's another cool thing. Although
Yeah, I heard about that.
you haven't? No.
No.
Yeah, it's. I think it's just rolling it out to. I had heard about that a few months ago, but it was like private beta, and now I think they're rolling it out to people.
Right.
But again, like I guess the Bandcamp, the big difference is that Bandcamp, in a way, gives you more payout as a label, as an artist.
Yeah, I've always been kind of skeptical of all these sort of schemes that SoundCloud seem to start. They've never been something that appealed to me greatly. Like, I never thought they'd be that beneficial. Yeah, so I have to see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly how that works. I mean, Bandcamp is great because it in a way gives you more payout, complete freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
On the negative side, I think the challenge is that you still need to bring traffic from somewhere to Bandcamp, otherwise,
yeah,
people just won't find you. It's super hard. And so yeah, you mentioned that your project with Ipman, which is more on the drum and bass side, like you started actually with producing breakcore and jungle, and then eventually like kind of dub, drum and bass, and eventually techno. Was there like a specific reason or moment where you said, okay, maybe I like techno as a sound more, and you started making more techno?
Not really. I was, a lot of the dubstep I was writing was kind of techno influenced without me really realizing it. Because like, I didn't really know what techno was. Like the first, I suppose, like real techno track I ever heard was Ben Clock's Sub-Zero, you know, which is not a particularly old track in terms of the big picture of techno. I mean, when I was younger, I used to go to free parties and stuff, and they'd be playing like hard acid techno and like, you know, pretty shit stuff, to be honest. But yeah, I think I was obviously writing on Osiris a lot, and me and Simon were both kind of going towards this more techno influenced dubsteppy sound, and then he like heard Regis Blood Witness one day and sent it over to me, and it kind of blew my mind, and kind of gradually got into techno more and more from there. And I kind of fell out of love with the whole dubstep scene, quite majorly, because it was all getting a bit weird and, you know, slightly toxic in my opinion, and I didn't really enjoy it anymore. And then found this new techno thing and got into that, and it just seemed more kind of open-minded, more experimental, definitely more my vibe. And obviously Simon has gone on to like work with Regis and Downwards a lot, and obviously the Osiris label is kind of everything now. It's not, obviously it used to be drum and bass in the early days with Cryptic Minds and their early stuff, and then it kind of spawned the whole dungeon dubstep sound, but now it's kind of anything and everything.
Mm-hmm. And production-wise, so you were producing more jungle and breakcore when you started, and how did you transition into producing more techno stuff? Was it hard? Did you find it like hard to adapt the production process, or was it?
Well, I didn't go from jungle into techno. That would have been hard because that's so different. But when I first started producing, it was, I think actually when I very first started producing, I started making like old school breaks, like early 90s, like hardcore and stuff, because that's the stuff I got into initially from free parties, and all my kind of mates were older, and that's the stuff that they played. And I spent disgusting amounts of money on, you know, rare vinyl from the early 90s. But yeah, then when I went to uni, I was playing like new school breaks when I first went to uni, and then I met Ipman and a bunch of people, and they were playing dubstep. Got into that for a few years, and then, like I say, kind of my dubstep sound kind of fairly naturally went to a more techno sound. And when me and Simon were first sort of producing techno stuff, Simon knows Paul Mack, has done for a long time, and Paul's obviously been writing techno for years, and he does mastering for a lot of techno labels now. And and he was sort of giving us advice, like production advice and techniques and tips and everything. I remember one thing he always used to tell us was turn the kick down. So kind of that was, because I always used to have in dubstep, we had sort of really big kicks, like really compressed kicks, really compressed big snares that were really prominent in the mix. So whenever I used to write techno, it always used to like just sound really weird. And then he just kept telling us to turn our kicks down, and eventually kind of got there. But kicks are always a thing I've always had a massive issue with. I hate them. I just hate kick drums. I think I'm sort of getting better at them now, but there's always room for improvement.
For sure, yes. And then, having like, if you hate kicks, I imagine like it must be hard like to get into techno, like thinking about like, hey, why this is not working, which is like, you have some tracks that are basically just made out of kick.
Yeah.
And there are people who just enjoy kicks so much, like
I just kind of obsess over the mix of them so much, and I never feel like they're right, and I kind of I don't know what it is with them. It's I just have this issue with them, and but I'm getting over it, I think. Yeah, I bought the analog rhythm, and kind of that helps a lot, because I just really like the sound of this, and you don't really have to put that much work in, because for a long time I was just working with samples, and I was just like, I didn't understand why I couldn't get this kind of sound that everyone else seemed to get, and then I bought the rhythm, and it kind of realized
that works better.
Like much better.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, and okay, yeah. I mean, you now sound. It seems to have gotten along with kicks much more. Like they sound good. And so, talking about your releases, so at the moment you haven't had your own label, and you release on other labels. Was there a way for you to send music out to people for them to listen to?
I've never really done the whole like sending demos out thing. With Osiris, I was writing dubstep, and I had releases on a few labels, and then Youngster, who was like the prominent kind of deep dubstep DJ at the time, started playing my stuff on Rinse FM, and like obviously he was playing a lot of Cryptic Mind stuff, and so Simon heard about my stuff through him, and then asked me for music, and that's how that happened. And then with Tommy, like I did a jungle mix for Icicle on Rinse FM like a long time ago, and posted it on Twitter, and like Tommy just kind of randomly hit me up and asked if I'd go and play at the First 4/7 night in Berlin at Arena, which kind of I didn't really understand why he'd asked me that, to be honest. But, so yeah, I went, and that's kind of how that relationship happened, and did a track on the first VA release on the label, and then kind of went from there. So everything kind of just happened quite organically. I never really sent demos out trying to look for releases, which I'm quite grateful for, because I think, and I understand that can be quite a stressful and frustrating way to go, I think, because if you're sending these demos out and labels don't get back to you, it must be quite frustrating. But again, that's another reason I want to start my own labels, is because you don't have to think about that at all. And I don't think there's necessarily the need to. It used to be the case that, if you wanted to make it, then you'd have to release on Trésor or one of the kind of really flagship labels of any genre, like Ram Records and drum and bass or whatever. But I don't think that's the case anymore, really. I think you just need really solid output, and to be able to get that output to the masses easily, I suppose, like you said, generating traffic and allowing people to hear it, which you could PR or just good Instagram posting, I suppose.
Yeah, in a way, like what strikes with me is also like so you both Simon and Tommy in a way reached out to you because of your output. So in a way,
Yeah.
If you didn't put the music out there, they wouldn't have found you probably, which is great. Yeah, it's great to know that. Yeah, in a way, like your music preceded you and kind of you followed in a way, right? So they saw what you were doing, what you were up to, and they said, okay, I like this music. Let me reach out.
I think primarily it was the sort of broken beat thing that really was what attracted it, I suppose, because the dubstep I used to write like wasn't traditional, you know, because at the time you either wrote jump up or you wrote like really kind of deep half step stuff like Digital Mystics or whatever. But I wasn't really doing that. I was kind of writing this kind of tribally, very percussive thing, which actually looking back now, there was this kind of similar movement in techno at the time as well. And maybe that's how Tommy came to hear my stuff, I don't know. But it was definitely the broken beat rhythms that I became known for, I think, at the time.
Yeah. In a way, it became your kind of signature sound. Yeah.
But it's something, I suppose that's still mainly what I do now. I kind of do feel at the moment there's this kind of thinking that you can take a 4/4 track and strip out the 4/4 beat and stick a triplet kick pattern over the top of it, and it instantly becomes an interesting track, which I disagree with, because there's a lot of really standard, boring, broken techno at the moment. It doesn't really go anywhere, so I kind of constantly try and stay away from doing kind of the stereotypical sound, and maybe that's slightly detrimental, but it's something I kind of consciously try to do.
Yeah. And I remember in one of your previous interviews, you also said that being in Portsmouth now, not being in cities such as London and Berlin, like it also allows you not to be too much influenced by the mainstream or what people play. Do you find that, like, in a way, that thing is also influencing you, meaning that you see what most people are doing and then you say, okay, I just don't want to do that, and then that kind of in a way influences you?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's easy. Like, you know, I've never lived in London or Berlin or Amsterdam or anywhere, and I've never lived in this. I've always felt slightly like an outsider. Well, you know, in life generally, really, but in music, I've never been in those kind of cliques. Like when I was writing dubstep, I wasn't in Bristol, and I wasn't in London, I wasn't in Manchester, where there were these kind of really cliquey musical communities. You know, and living in Portsmouth, where there's practically like no creative industries at all, it's like a dead zone, like in terms of music and art or anything. Yeah, like I think it allows you to step back from things and look at things with a different perspective, you know, as an outsider, and see where maybe what the kind of trends are, what's being overdone. And then, yeah, like I said, sort of consciously try and stay away from doing those things. And I think it does make life in the short term harder, because your sound isn't as accessible, and it's never going to be that kind of really kind of peak of popularity. But yeah, I don't know, like I said, I get really bored writing music really quickly. So I have to switch things up constantly. And I think, yeah, sort of staying away from the trends helps with that.
Yeah, and in a way, what I'm getting also from what you say is, it depends what is your objective. If you are happy with your music, you don't find your happiness in someone else's praising you or buying all of your music or putting you like on a pedestal, like because you do music that everybody wants. I think that's great, because that is the real success. And I think if you seem to be conscious that like what you do it because you like the music, independently from having external validation in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone does require some sort of validation. It's, you know, it's just a human instinct, isn't it? So of course, like, I want people to like my music and buy my music, and I want to be able to, you know, go and play gigs. But at the same time, it's not the be all and end all of why I write music. I think it's interesting. The whole kind of validation point is very prominent right now. With now, people aren't playing gigs and aren't constantly posting sort of pictures of previous weekend's gigs on Instagram constantly and next week's flyers. Is that there's been a real obvious, I don't know, this requirement for validation that people feel at the moment in all forms of music, I suppose, not just techno. But it's quite obvious how reliant people have become on that instant validation that you get from Instagram and social media. And it's been quite interesting, to be honest, the past few weeks. And that's made me realise that, you know, starting this engineering degree later this year maybe is even more of a right decision than I thought it was originally, because I'm not sure that I want to have to rely on validation from social media to get me through life, really.
It's a great. I wish like a lot of people were at least questioning whether they are getting too much carried by the external validation, because I think that's a dangerous place to be in.
Yeah.
And in a way, like, the positive side of all this crisis is what you were saying, that basically you, like, for how long can you just rely on someone liking your post, especially in this crisis, if you're not happy inside what you are actually wanting to focus on? And
yeah.
Very tough. And I guess, I mean, the whole Instagram thing, or in general social media, in a way, it is exacerbating our need for validation, because it kind of brings that to you, accessible to you any time of the day. You just need to post a selfie in some cases, and if you have a face that people consider pretty, you get the validation. Like, it's almost like someone is pouring you dopamine and oxytocin. It's literally like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proven fact that social media likes are addictive, you know. So yeah, very interesting stuff. And one question that came from the audience is, it's a very specific question on your music, and how do you take care of your ears while you're working on aggressive sounds and processing with saturation, overdrive? Don't turn it up too loud. So, I mean, that's I feel like I'm very, very sensitive to resonance in sound. Like, there's a lot of music that comes out, and I'm like, how on earth did people manage to produce that without killing their ears? Because you've just got all these horrible resonant peaks, you know, sort of around 4K and 10K and, you know, 200 hertz, and it just sounds bizarre to me. But yeah, I'm constantly like EQing out horrible noise, and I don't produce loudly. One reason is because I have neighbours and I don't want to piss them off. But I think it's important not to write loudly, because it makes it easy to get really carried away with the
it's easy. It's true. And
I mean, like, when I have custom earplugs for shows and stuff.
I'm gonna ask, yes, exactly.
Because again, like, I played a show not long ago, and yeah, the sound system was not great, and I would have had to leave if I didn't have these earplugs, because it was just really hurting my ears. But yeah, I have those, and I tend to live my life very quietly. I don't listen to music a great deal. I'm kind of very sensitive to loud, unnecessary noise.
Yeah.
There's actually a condition called misophonia, which I've only come across recently. I read an article about it in The Guardian. And it's people who have sort of really adverse reactions to like unnecessary noise and noise that's too loud. You know, which is ironic for someone who DJs in clubs and stuff, but
yeah,
clubs are supposed to be loud, you know, so it feels right. But you know, when my neighbours are playing Call of Duty like at ridiculous volume and all you can hear is explosions, I get like really anxious, and I sleep with earplugs in at night because I'm like constantly listening for stuff all the time. So I think I do tend to live my life very quietly, which again just protects your ears.
Indeed, yes. And so misophonia is basically a condition that in a way exacerbates your reaction to specific sounds or to volume in general.
I think it's both. There's certain sounds like like babies crying, they make me like really anxious when I hear that noise. But like it tends to be like unnecessarily loud noises for the context in which they're being played. I don't know, it's kind of difficult to describe, but it's yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have it, but I feel like I could when I'm sort of reading about it. But I've actually spoken to quite a lot of DJs and producers who have a similar thing. You know, like I find it really, I can't, if someone tries to speak to me in a club, like I just won't be able to hear you because I can't pick out your voice in the midst of all the noise. But then when I'm producing, or just kind of generally, I can hear really, really minute details, like very specifically that, you know, someone who maybe isn't a producer, they can't hear. So it's, you know, I wonder whether I've trained my ears to hear things so specifically that when something is too loud or too harsh, it's like really, really exaggerated. And I know a lot of other producers and DJs sort of have the same thing. So it's quite interesting.
Yes, indeed. And I think wearing earplugs, especially the custom-made ones, it does have a huge positive impact on your health, or even like not just long-term health, but like literally when you go to a club and you feel like you cannot stay because it's too loud or too distorted, like it kills your night.
Yeah, and then you get back to the hotel room and your just ears are like ringing all night. I mean, I never was that busy that I was playing gigs every weekend and wasn't, you know, was constantly subjected to that, those sorts of volume. Not that it takes like continued exposure to it, because I know some people, you know, they can go out once and hear that and they'll blow their ear. But yeah, when I got these earplugs, it was like I put them in and it was amazing. I was just like, I wish I'd got them 5 years earlier.
Yeah, new life. And what earplugs do you normally use?
I can't remember. We have this scheme in this country that's for musicians that you get like cheap custom earplugs. I can't remember who it's by now. I don't know if you've
ACS.
heard of them. Yes, ACS. That's it.
I have the same. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I went and got them. I got some sleeping ones at the same time, and kind of that changed my life as well. So yeah, definitely pleased I did that.
Yeah, I think they're super useful and they molded to your ears, and then exactly.
It's just my kitten ate both of them a couple of times when I first got them, so I have to hide them now.
Yeah, they're relatively expensive as well. So I mean, like
yes, yeah,
yeah, amazing. And a couple of last questions while we go to the wrap up. If you could leave one skill that you have learned, you have acquired over the years, or a piece of advice to an hypothetical son or daughter, what would that be?
That's difficult. Probably just kind of follow your own path. Mm-hmm. I think it's so easy to feel pressured to go down a certain path that's, you know, maybe kind of being pushed along by society, or of feeling sort of self-conscious about what you want to do, or with my music, like I only really feel like in the last couple of years I've actually become confident that I can write music well, and because I think I've always had imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of people do, and I never really feel like when people book me for gigs, I'm like, why are they booking me for gigs? Like, why do they want to pay all this money for me to go over there and play and DJ for 2 hours? Or I think kind of I would just do what you want to do, and eventually it will come good, I think.
It's a brilliant thing to say, I think.
I mean, it's easier said than done, for sure. Like it's a difficult thing to do, and I think it's a difficult thing to learn, to be confident with yourself, and kind of believe that you are just as talented as other people and you have something to offer. It's definitely difficult to learn that unless you're kind of naturally arrogant. But I think once you do learn that, it's definitely very beneficial.
Indeed, yeah. It does take time. Like it's okay. Like everybody has their own starting point, which might be different from other people, but eventually everybody has a journey to go through to become a bit more self-confident, and to a point where what you were saying before about the validation, which is in human nature, doesn't really help. It's kind of a big force against that, because you need to have in a way, we are afraid of not getting validated or getting rejected by people, so that really sometimes hampers our development.
I think it's very easy to judge yourself, like on you compare yourself to how other people are being judged online and everything, and again it comes back to comparing your Instagram likes or whatever. It's what everyone does now, and it's dangerous. Like, half the reason I want to continue with the engineering is because I've often felt like music is a very selfish profession, like, because essentially it's just people kind of doing their hobby as a career, and it's not necessarily like, obviously music, everyone needs music, and for a lot of people it's their life, but engineering for me, like I want to be able to kind of contribute something really kind of I don't know what the word is, but like I want to be able to contribute something in a very kind of material, tangible way, like, whereas I've never really felt like I can do that with music. With engineering, like you can do so much stuff, and I'd quite like to get into something to do with sustainability and the environment and helping all of that, and it's kind of, that's definitely something I've struggled with writing music, is like it's just felt very selfish to me.
Yeah, and in a way, like going it can be, especially when you if you frame it in a way that, like, if you think about it, like we go to play, we produce music for people to kind of forget reality in a club for a few hours, and that is it's kind of the opposite of doing something.
I mean, it's still a positive thing for a lot of people. It's a positive thing for me. Like I need that as well. I think everyone needs to escape in their own unique way, and if I can help people do that for a few hours on a Sunday morning, then that's cool. But I also think that me and a lot of people still need some other form of kind of validation of how we're living our life, but in a less kind of in a less virtual manner. I don't know if that makes sense, but there is I guess a component of contribution and connection that you have. I guess, I mean, the connection, I feel what you were saying about music is totally true, that like people still need to escape and have fun and connect, and music is an amazing way to do that. I think what I was getting to is more like that is not all of it, I think. Which is what you were saying as well, is like that is a part that a lot of us need, enjoy, and it's great. I think there is also another component and other needs that we want to fulfill. definitely.
Amazing. And Matt, is there any new projects that you want people to check if they're interested in what you're doing? I'm sure they are.
Well, I mean, yeah, go and check the Motive Power stuff. There'll be plenty of stuff over the next few months, should be anyway. But solo stuff, like I've nearly got an album, like a solo album done. I just need a couple more tracks, and then some artwork which is being done at the moment. But yeah, I'm hoping that'll be out end of May, start of June.
Yeah.
And then another Motive Power EP in June, probably.
That's good.
But yeah, there should be plenty of stuff coming out in the next few months anyway.
But is the album coming out on your label or?
Yeah, it'll be on. Like it's made up of all sorts of stuff. So again, I think it's something that a already established label would find difficult to release. So most of the tunes are tunes I wrote for other EPs for other labels that kind of got rejected, but that I really like. And I kind of collated them and picked the ones out that all fit together and sort of have a very similar theme and kind of built it around them. But yeah, it's like there's some kind of like dubstep on there. There's banging techno. There's weird soundscapey stuff. There's all sorts of stuff. So I'm quite looking forward to releasing that actually.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to hearing that. It sounds an exciting project.
Yeah, it's been fun as well. It's been nice to do something a bit different.
Yeah, indeed, and we'll make sure to put all the links in the show notes, and also yes, of course, when the album is out, we're happy to try to spread it as much as possible.
Cool. Cheers.
Really looking forward to it. Matt, thanks so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye. Thank you.